Hey guys, happy November. You can clearly see our first weekly candle of November for Bitcoin is making absolutely everyone ecstatic with over $2 billion of liquidations, directly following a 1.28 billion liquidation day. So that is a very great 48 hours for crypto, and I hope everyone is doing fine today. And MicroStrategy is also looking very, very nice. Now, on the weekly chart, we have pulled back to the 50-week triangular moving average that I was talking about in the last few videos. Now, if we have a look back at what happened in April, February, March, you can clearly see we had that massive flush out, which we got here. We got bought right back up, flushed out again the next week, got bought back up again, and then we flushed out again. Now, if you watched Jason Pizzino's video yesterday, he talked about how this correction here in 2024 was about 144 days, and this one was about 77 days here in early 2025. And if this correction here halves again to around 38, 39 days, we should be seeing a low roughly next week or thereabouts. So you can clearly see with the price action just being accelerated through each one of these dips where the flushes and bounces get quicker and quicker. I have very, very good hope that there is a potential major bottom forming here. And you can see here Peter DiCarlo over on X, he's also talking about where the cycle top is very close, and typically when the Bitcoin monthly BX trender closes red, you'll only see 1 to 3 months remaining in the cycle before the cycle top comes in, which if you watch Jason over on YouTube, he's also talked about potentially seeing a rally into the start of next year or the end of this year. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And Bitcoin pretty much has to bounce here or we are in deep trouble. Now, if we have a look back here in 2024, we had a weekly close under the 50-week TMA, but the next week was a bullish engulfing candle that took out the top of that week, whilst in April 2025, we didn't even get a weekly close under the 50-week TMA, we just had a wick. So ideally, what happens here, especially because of how late we are in the cycle, we get a very long wick, similar to what we saw here on the 5th of August 2024, and we close back inside of market bias. So I would love to see a close above $106,000, or better yet, above $108,000, as that would keep us above some of these tops through here of December last year and January this year. Will that happen? Potentially. I am hopeful based on market data because we have constantly hit the long max pain level. And you can have a look here. Our short max pain level is way up there. And if we have a look here, the 2-week max pain is around $112,000, which would line up with a very big reversal candle either this week or next week. And that would absolutely destroy all the shorts. And if we have a look at the long-short ratio, we are over 4%, which if you watch Michael Pizzino on YouTube, you will know when you start to see liquidations go over $1 billion and the long-short ratio exceed 3%, you have a very good chance of at least a 24 to 72 hour reversal. And with liquidations double that, and the long-short ratio having been out of balance for well over just a day or two, I am very hopeful that we will start to see some solid reversals. Now, having a look here at the liquidation map, we're going to ignore the 1 day. We're going to look at the 30-day. You can see, to get $1 billion of long liquidations, price would need to hit 97K, and to get another $2 billion, we would pretty much have to drop into the $80,000 range. But if we pump we only need to hit 103k to get $1 billion of short liquidations. And to hit that $2 billion mark, we'd only need to hit 105k. Now, if we go all the way to the roughly $112,000 max pain level, you can see we've got nearly over $6 billion of liquidity there. And same here on the hyperliquid chart, you can see there's just so much more liquidity to the upside than there is to the downside. Like you can see here, there's this massive block of liquidity at $111,000, whilst to get that same massive block of liquidity, 2.4k Bitcoin, we would need to potentially come down into the $93,000-$94,000 range. And especially with how many times we've hit the long max pain and the fact that we are trading at macro support right now, I am just leaning towards the bullish side. Now, on the contrary, we do know that we are within the timing for a cycle top, and we've rejected 3 times off the institutional sell level of the Fibonacci extension of the August last year low to the January top projected off the April low this year, which means that smart money has been selling to retail at around the 124k range. So even as I'm talking, Bitcoin is still bleeding on the shorter term timeframes. And you can just see here how well the 50 TMA has acted as support flipped resistance. As soon as we started getting price action underneath it, we just had this absolute bleed out. So what now? We're approaching some more potential support levels down here at around $97,000, which I would really like to see us not hit. Altcoins are looking tragic. This distribution schematic was confirmed with a 2-bar lower high under $107,000 on the 4-hour chart, which I talked about in the TIA Discord. It looked like reaccumulation all the way until we started to break down here on the 3rd of November. And then we got this 2-bar lower high on the 4th of November, and the rest was history. We got a clean 4th time breakdown on the bearish pennant. Failed move up equals fast move down typically. And there's really not much more to say. More bullish hopium would be that the US dollar index is 7 weeks up, coming into the 50-week triangular moving average from the underside. And we've been sitting in this massive breakout on the weekly BX trender. You can see we haven't had such a massive streak of green since pretty much May of 2018. This, March 2021 was potentially another streak of green, but it literally looks like we've had an even longer streak of green now. So honestly, July 2014 would have been the last time we had this much green on the weekly BX trender. So yeah, buying momentum is definitely, I would say, look, I don't really know how to put this to words, but when you get this much buying momentum and price is really not going anywhere, it's coming into strong resistance from below, the chance of a rejection is just so high. And as someone in TIA Discord said yesterday, if this was a stock or crypto, they would be shorting it. Now, another concern for this cycle is exchange tokens are melting. CRO and BNB have printed weekly tops, and you can see BNB has finally flashed red on the weekly BX trender, which is not a great sign. Some more hopium is we are 7 days down on CRO, and you can clearly see the last few times we've had 7 days down, we've seen a pretty strong bounce, except here, where we saw a weak bounce and further continuation. Now, having a quick look at the stock market, you can see the S&P 500 looks like it is wanting to close this week dark red on the BX Trender. And this green move last week appears to be a fake out. And you can see Nvidia hit the $204 target over at Traders Helping Traders that Peter DiCarlo made a video on. So if you got this, $180 to $204 10% trade, congratulations. The Nasdaq is looking stronger than the S&P 500. We are showing that buying pressure is coming out with darker green, but we haven't flipped red yet. And this is one of the things that a lot of people have been talking about, where most of the stocks are making like 50-week lows, but you've got a couple of stocks like Nvidia, that are just dragging the rest of the market up. See, even having a look at Microsoft, like we've been red on the BX Trender for weeks and weeks, but on the flip side, price really isn't selling off, It's selling off like 6% going up, 10%. It's pretty much still where it was a few months ago. And Tesla, we've had this massive breakout, but we've still been holding this $420 support level. So the market's at such a funny place. Obviously, Google's had that parabolic run in the last few weeks, but again, it's still holding its breakout. Same with Apple. Obviously, Meta had a big miss with earnings, and like Bitcoin, it's come down to its 50-week triangular moving average, which we've been holding as support since the start of this bull market. So I would ideally like to see some consolidation here for Meta, and hopefully a nice move up. Amazon, nice move up into all-time highs. We are still holding above the previous all-time high, which is nice. Netflix, another earnings miss with the monthly BX Trender turning red. We were discussing this over in the TIA Discord that we think there are many reasons to think the cycle top for Netflix is potentially in. And you can see with all this red on the weekly BX Trender, we are either at a massive discount before we see another huge move up, or the top is in. So only time will tell. But I will not be touching Netflix until we start to see some green on the weekly BX Trender. Now, for all of you crypto fanboys, I know we're only interested in MicroStrategy and Coinbase. And MicroStrategy has been looking absolutely disgusting lately. It has just been selling off after selling off after selling off. And right here, we have a weekly fourth time breakdown potential. If price can come, down to around 238, 236, maybe a close under 230 on a weekly basis. If you watched Jason's video yesterday, he was talking about downside targets for MicroStrategy. I'm not going to spoil it for you because, to be honest, I don't remember myself. So you're just going to have to go watch it yourself. But on the monthly chart, MicroStrategy has been red since August, and we are pulling back into the monthly market bias. Now you can see when this happened last cycle, we had a decent bounce, $30 up to $52. That's a very tradable range, but that would mean to get a similar bounce, MicroStrategy would need to come down to $205 and then bounce up to, did we get to the top of the market bias? Yeah, so around $290, which again, 45-50% range is more than tradable. But for something like that to happen, Bitcoin would potentially have to continue bleeding down, potentially past this $97,000 level. Like if you've watched Jason's videos in the last few days, he talked about Bitcoin potentially bleeding down, into the low 90s, high 80s or below, and us having a massive dead cat bounce, which if we have a look at last cycle, typically goes into the 50-week TMA from below and the top of the market bias. So depending on where this ends up being, we could see a dead cat bounce up to 115k, 105k, 102k, which assuming we come down to 80k, 70k, is still a very tradable range. Us moon boys out there, we definitely don't want to see something like that happen. Having a look at Coinbase, you can see We also have a lot of red on the weekly BX trender. We are still holding market bias. So Coinbase is looking a lot stronger than MicroStrategy, which has been melting underneath market bias. And I've been a bit of a up-only moon boy by potentially reading this as a Wyckoff reaccumulation schematic. And as long as we're holding above, around 297 to 284 for Coinbase, I think this could still be reaccumulation. This lower high from July to October is not very promising at all. And if we head over to the monthly chart for Coinbase, you can see we have not flipped red yet. So it is possible that if Bitcoin bounces here, Coinbase could still rally into either a lower high, most likely, or a higher high. And even if we do go into a lower high, let's say we extend this trend line on Coinbase, that was absolutely abysmal. If we find bottom here, we could still rally into, $370, which is, a 23-ish% move. So if you're trading that on leverage or options or just a big chunk of cash, there's still money to be made. And your invalidation could be, a weekly close under 280, which gives you roughly a 2-to-1 RVR. So it's definitely not bad. Now, having a look at AMD. Peter DiCarlo posted on his X and YouTube that there was some unusual options flow for $300, but a lot of that was expiring in 2026. So in the next few weeks to months, I wouldn't be surprised to see AMD consolidate above either 200 or better yet $227, because we are still seeing huge buying pressure on the weekly and monthly timeframes. My concern, though, is that weekly market bias is all the way down there. So even if, we push into $300, this is pretty much a 1-to-1 RVR at best, potentially less. So it's a trade that I'm not taking because I was building a position, all the way through here, like $90 through to $140. Big thank you to Peter DiCarlo and Traders Helping Traders there for helping me get in on that move to snipe the low with the weekly BX trender, and obviously TIA Crypto for teaching me that, when you start to consolidate above the 50% level, that usually leads to another move up. Now, the crypto miners have been doing very well recently, but they are also making a lower high. Now, CleanSpark is the only chart I have open. I close the other ones, but you can just see that even though we've had an absolutely explosive move up, that's like, 150%. We've sold off pretty aggressively, still holding above the 50% level, so there is still hope for this cycle. But you can see, we're still consolidating above this trend line. The weekly BX trender isn't red, so there's so much conflicting signals. Now, Palantir, we've broken out, made a new all-time high, and so far we are still holding it. The weekly market bias is still green. So you can just see, look at that monthly market bias. Even though we are so overextended and price could technically capitulate 50% and still be in a bullish market structure, where it's just an awkward spot to trade. Like, do you get in or do you wait for the market to pull back? If it doesn't pull back, what do you do? And as I'm speaking here, Bitcoin loses the $100,000 support yet again, and I would love to see the liquidations. Oh, everyone's already been liquidated. We only got 0.01 billion. That's nice. Anyways, that is my update for today. I wouldn't be surprised to see the stock market pull back from here, especially with Peter DiCarlo's X posts. This guy is pretty damn good. But crypto looks like it's due for a bounce. So I am very conflicted. And having a look at the crypto stocks, you can see like MicroStrategy looks like it wants to keep melting. But Coinbase and, you know, a lot of the miners look like they want to make another leg up. So potentially we form a bit of a base here, like a reaccumulation zone after we confirm this as a distribution zone. Ideally from, 100,000 to 107,000, we can reaccumulate and quickly get back above 108,000. But either way, thank you all for watching, and there's not much more for me to say today. Goodbye.